The series begins with Min, a first-year high school student whose school life is a living hell. On his way to school, he even wishes he could get into an accident and fall into a coma, only to wake up after graduation.
죽는 것 따위 두렵지 않다. 하지마! 왜? 압박돼서 위험해!
When he arrives at school, we learn why his life is so miserable. His classmate Suk is standing on the roof of the building, then suddenly jumps. Min remembers how things reached that point. Some time ago, the school bullies handed Suk the outcast stick. Whoever held it became the school's official outcast, the person everyone mocked and humiliated. Unfortunately, Min was too scared to stand up to them. After suffering at their hands for so long, he was relieved that someone else had become their target. We then learn why they turned on Suk. Earlier, Hyun, the most influential student in the class, was watching a lecture video while the teacher was explaining the same lesson. Out of simple courtesy, she told him that wasn't appropriate since she was teaching. The rude student replied that her explanation was terrible and began humiliating her. At that moment, Suk finally snapped and punched him, telling him he had had enough. Because of that, the bullies made Suk their new victim. Min witnessed everything but couldn't object. When he tried reporting the situation to the teachers, he discovered they were terrified themselves. 2 years earlier, a teacher at another school had been killed by a student. Realizing that no one would save students like him and Suk, Min lost all hope. Suk understood that reality too. That was why he ended his own life. Afterward, the police arrived to investigate. For the first time, Min felt a spark of hope that his suffering might finally end. The bullies quickly crushed that hope, telling him the police would never do anything, and they were right. The case was closed, and Min was forced back into his role as the school outcast. He even tried doing what Suk had done, but he couldn't go through with it.
이건 헬다 놀린 것 같아. 경민아, 너 술 마셔봤어?
Later, while returning to class, another bully started beating him for no reason. As usual, nobody stepped in. Then suddenly, a man appeared and knocked the bully away. Everyone was stunned. The bully got up to fight back, but the man beat him down even harder and said, "Show some respect, kid. I'm older than you." Hyun and his gang demanded to know who he was. The man introduced himself as the new teacher. Hyun immediately protested, saying teachers weren't allowed to hit students, and ordered everyone to film the incident. Another bully mocked him, saying, "What teacher? You can't hit me now that the cameras are rolling?" The man calmly replied, "You asked for it," and hit him anyway, right in front of the cameras. Everyone was completely shocked. Even the principal came to question him. The man introduced himself as an inspector from the Office of Educational Protection, a newly established government organization created to deal with students who didn't care when their classmates died from bullying, and with schools that covered up such incidents. The principal insisted that no one was allowed to hit students. The inspector replied that at their office, physical discipline was permitted when words weren't enough. The principal took him to his office and explained that his methods wouldn't work there because some students came from powerful families. The inspector answered that he intended to take charge of Suk's class, the very class that contained those influential students. They warned him about Hyun, whose father was a major figure in the National Party. The inspector simply smiled and said, "Then he'll be my favorite student." When he entered the classroom, the bullies immediately realized they were in trouble. He started taking attendance until he reached Suk's name. Then he asked everyone if they knew why Suk had died. One student jokingly replied that Suk couldn't handle failing in school and stupidly killed himself. The inspector immediately grabbed him and struck him in front of the entire class. "Even after your classmate died, you still feel no remorse." When he noticed they were at least slightly uncomfortable, he ordered everyone to do push-ups. Hyun told them to stay seated. The inspector repeated the order. Nobody moved. Hyun smirked and said, "Looks like they're more afraid of me than you." The inspector grabbed Hyun's head and slammed it onto his desk. "Come on, show me your courage. Start doing push-ups." Terrified, Hyun obeyed. The rest quickly followed. At lunchtime, Hyun once again bullied other students and cut in line. The inspector stopped him and said, "Are you this pathetic in everything you do? Get to the back of the line if you want food." Hyun ignored him, took food by force, and threw it away. The inspector kicked him and said, "Sorry, kid, I can't tolerate anyone disrespecting food." Then he ordered him to clean up the mess. By the end of the day, Hyun was furious. He took his anger out on poor Min and went home, leaving his friends behind to clean. Then came an even bigger shock. The inspector went straight to Hyun's house. He met Hyun's father Ryu and bluntly told him, "I'm taking your son. Since you never raised him properly, he can help his friends finish their work." Ryu was stunned by his audacity and warned him not to interfere. The inspector simply replied, "Make me regret it," then dragged Hyun away by the ear and forced him to clean bathrooms. To frame the inspector, Hyun slammed his own head into something and called his father. The inspector dismissed it, saying, "Your idiot son hurt himself. How is that my fault?" Meanwhile, Hyun continued tormenting Min as usual. When the inspector learned about it, he told Min that if he couldn't defend himself, it was okay to run away. Then he began training him to run every day.
내가 미치겠어.
Later, they ate dinner together. The inspector suggested telling his parents. Min revealed that his parents were always busy with work. The inspector told him he could rely on trustworthy adults instead. For the first time, Min felt hope. As for Ryu, Hyun's father, he went directly to the Minister of Education. He warned that he and the other influential parents wouldn't stay silent and demanded that the Office of Educational Protection be shut down. Then, he left for an important press conference connected to his upcoming election campaign. However, when he arrived, he found himself surrounded by reporters exposing his bribery scandals and affairs with women. Trying to hide, he entered a hall and found the minister waiting inside. The minister revealed that he had arranged everything. When Ryu demanded to know why, the minister explained that he had spent 2 years preparing this office and that anyone who opposed it would meet the same fate. Ryu argued that many politicians were worse than him. The minister replied, "You're not the target, your son is. When you fall, your son falls too." Soon afterward, Ryu was arrested. At school, Hyun became the new target of bullying. The students handed him the outcast stick. Driven to the edge, he decided to burn them all alive. When the inspector arrived, he stood before him smoking a cigarette. Hyun panicked because gasoline had already been poured around him. He begged the inspector to put out the lighter. Instead, the inspector frightened him even more by throwing it. Hyun ran desperately from the flames, begging for mercy. Only then did the inspector extinguish the fire. He reminded Hyun that Suk had also been terrified of death. But because Hyun had destroyed his life through bullying, Suk saw no other choice. No matter how much Hyun repented, Suk would never come back. He would have to live with that guilt forever. We then see what really happened. When Hyun bullied Suk, Suk refused to stay silent. He brought his father to the school and reported everything to the principal. Because of Hyun's father's influence, nothing happened. Instead, they advised Suk's father to transfer him to another school. They even ruined the father's job. Desperate, Suk begged Hyun to spare his father and promised to do anything. Hyun coldly replied, "Simple, kill yourself." Tragically, Suk did exactly that. Now, Hyun finally breaks down in tears. Whether it is genuine remorse or simply fear is unclear. Soon afterward, Hyun and the other bullies are arrested when Suk's case is reopened. At last, they will face justice. The inspector later visits the grave of a girl who died 2 years earlier. The minister is there as well. Both men are still grieving her death. Public opinion then turns against the Office of Educational Protection. Many people argue that no government office should have the right to hit students. Reporters attack the minister and ask where human rights fit into all this. The minister becomes furious. Where are human rights? Students are dying every day because of bullying. Teachers are terrified. Many students only come to school to mark attendance before going to private academies. I'm not against tutoring, but it's our duty as the Ministry of Education to provide a safe environment for students, even if that requires force. He adds that students today are no longer like they used to be. Some are involved with gangs. Anyone who stands in the way of education will be held accountable. The gang issue turns out to be very real. Later, we meet a new student transferring to a technical school called Khan. The school looks more like an abandoned building than a place of learning. He finally spots another student, only for the boy to immediately try attacking him. Terrified, the newcomer offers him money to protect him. The student feels sorry for him and warns him that this school is unlike any other. The new student becomes even more frightened. When he enters the classroom and introduces himself, everyone looks like gang members. He quietly sits down, but before he can even open his book, the others knock him over. Then, they all tell the teacher they forgot their books. The teacher completely loses hope and leaves. The students immediately grab weapons and start copying one another. They head to the electrical department, where one student wants someone from the design department to draw a tattoo on his chest. Meanwhile, the first department starts fighting the second department, beating each other senseless. The new student, Bon, has no idea what is happening. His only calm classmate, Joe, explains that the electrical department and the automotive department constantly fight to attract the attention of their leader. Bon asks who that leader is. At the same time, the principal explains the situation to the inspector. The leader is a student named Hyuk. Although he rarely attends school, he belongs to a gang outside of it. His social media is filled with luxury brands, money, alcohol, and wild parties. The students constantly fight to earn his attention. One day, Hyuk suddenly sends a message to the head of the electrical department, saying he wants to meet him. The fighting immediately stops. The automotive department leader becomes jealous and starts beating his own followers. He even forces Bon and Joe to fight each other. Joe quietly tells Bon to pretend. Bon does exactly that. Afterward, Joe is declared the loser and becomes their personal punching bag. They use him to measure their strength by beating him and having him rate their attacks. It is humiliating beyond words. Joe endures everything. Later, while walking home, he becomes exhausted. Bon feels sorry for him, carries his bag, and walks him home. Joe invites him inside for ramen. Bon sees how simple Joe's life is with his mother and realizes how much Joe genuinely wants to build a future through school. The next day, Bon encounters the inspector. When the inspector sees him, we learn that Bon is actually one of his employees, not a student. Because Bon looked innocent enough to become a bullying victim, the inspector planted him in the school to secretly record everything through his glasses. Now, the inspector gives him a dangerous new mission. Provoke all the students and make them chase him. Bon insults them and runs. He record everything through his glasses. Now, the inspector gives him a dangerous new mission. Provoke all the students and make them chase him. Bon insults them and runs. The entire school chases after him until they reach the athletic field. Once everyone is inside, the inspector enters and locks the gates. He introduces himself. One student immediately recognizes him. They boast that they aren't ordinary students and can't be controlled like the others. The inspector simply asks, "What's so special about you?" They rush him. A moment later, every one of them is lying on the ground. After that, they obey him like beaten dogs. He introduces a strict new schedule, filled with classes to make up for everything they had missed. When they try objecting, he beats them again. Then he brings in a teacher who can hardly believe the level of discipline. When he asks where their books are, only Joe has one. The inspector orders Joe to write the lesson on the board, while everyone else copies it. The students claim they don't even have pens. The inspector looks at the head of the electrical department and says, "Well, your finger still works, doesn't it?" And he makes it very clear that excuses are no longer going to save anyone. He cut his finger and used his own blood to write. Then, he grabbed a pen and continued writing, while everyone else ran around borrowing pens so they could copy the lesson too. Less than 5 minutes later, they looked up and discovered he had already erased everything from the board. The time is up. Anyone who hadn't finished writing got beaten. The head of the automotive department finally exploded in anger. "What is this? These classes aren't important anyway." The inspector replied, "You know what? You're right. Come on, men. Let's do some practical work." He took them all to a car and asked them to inspect it. When they refused, he grabbed the leaders of both departments, threw them into the vehicle, and took them on a smooth, controlled ride that demonstrated real driving skill. The students ended up respecting him because of it. Unfortunately, those two still learned nothing. They decided to run away from school and complain to Hyuk. The problem was that they didn't know how to contact him. While searching Ban, they found something that could help, so they forced him to come with them. They finally met Hyuk and complained about the inspector. That night, when the inspector asked where they had gone, they returned looking delighted. They confidently declared that the inspector was finished, that his remaining days were numbered now that Hyuk was involved. Soon afterward, Hyuk arrived on his motorcycle, making a dramatic entrance. Honestly, he looked far too big to be a student. He was fearless, and immediately tried attacking the inspector. The inspector revealed that he had deliberately left bait to lure Hyuk out. At first, it looked as if Hyuk might actually defeat him. He even managed to throw the inspector to the ground. The students thought it was over. Hyuk proudly told them, "See, if anyone bothers you, just tell me. You're all under my protection." The students were about to start chanting his name when they suddenly heard another voice joining in. The inspector was chanting too. Everyone froze. Then the inspector stood up and stopped playing around. This time, he hit Hyuk seriously. The students were terrified. Meanwhile, the minister was attending a meeting with another politician. They criticized the inspector, arguing that he wasn't suitable for the office because he was a former soldier. "What does a soldier have to do with education?" The minister replied, "Look at the students today. Do you really think ordinary teachers can handle them? These kids have become monsters. If we want to teach them discipline, we need people who can fight monsters." At that very moment, Hyuk called the gang he belonged to and asked for backup. They arrived immediately. Hyuk thought he was saved. Instead, everyone watched in horror as the inspector completely crushed them too.
좋아. 좋아.
Afterward, they begged him for mercy and repeatedly apologized. The inspector told them not to apologize to him. He told them to apologize to Joe. Joe initially tried to act like it was no big deal. Then he suddenly broke down crying. What they had done to him had truly hurt. The inspector told them that if they weren't interested in education, they could simply leave school. But they had no right to waste other students' time. Your classmates' time doesn't belong to you. Later, the minister held a press conference and spoke about the achievements at Khan's school. He announced several new rules. No student would be allowed to have tattoos anymore. Anyone with tattoos would have them removed. Any student who joined a gang would be treated as an adult criminal and would no longer be protected under juvenile law. Motorcycles and smoking were also prohibited. The results were significant. Life at Khan's school improved dramatically. For the first time, Joe was genuinely learning alongside his classmates. The minister and the inspector were delighted by the success. Then, Ban appeared to complain. He wanted compensation because he had spent a lot of his own money during the mission. Bribes here, expenses there, and money lost while being bullied. The amount was ridiculously small. The others humored him and told him to file a request and he would get his money back. At the same time, the politician who had demanded the closure of the office was looking through old photographs. Among them was a picture from the funeral of the girl who had died 2 years earlier. The minister and the inspector were standing there, devastated. We learned that the inspector had actually been engaged to her. Even after 2 years, he still hadn't overcome the injustice of what happened to her or the way she died. The story then takes us back 2 years. The inspector and his fiancée were walking together when they spotted students smoking. He told her not to interfere. Students these days are frightening. She replied, "So what? Are you going to protect me forever? If teachers start fearing students, our lives will only become harder." She approached the students, took away their cigarettes, and tried to advise them. Sadly, there came a day when he couldn't protect her. One of her students, a boy notorious for causing trouble, killed her. During the trial, the student claimed he regretted it and insisted he had genuinely loved her. The inspector heard those words and could barely control himself. In his rage, he tried to run the student over with his car. The minister stopped him. We then learned that the woman had been the minister's daughter. Once the inspector calmed down, the minister told him that killing the student would accomplish nothing except destroying his own future. Instead, he planned to create an office after becoming Minister of Education, an office that would seek justice for wrong teachers like his daughter. If the inspector wanted to help, he could join him, and that is exactly what happened. Now, for the first time, they take on a case at a girls' school. The case revolves around a teacher accused of harassing a student. The student uploaded a video accusing him. Shortly afterward, the teacher took his own life. The alleged victim wasn't an ordinary student. She was a famous Instagram influencer with more than 600,000 followers. Bon admits he is worried about taking the case because the girl is extremely famous and they really don't need more controversy. The minister replies, "What? Are we supposed to be afraid too? Isn't it enough that an innocent teacher was terrified into death?" We then learn why they are certain the teacher was innocent. The famous girl was usually distracted in class and constantly live streaming. One day, her teacher confiscated her phone. To get revenge, she uploaded an edited video making it look like the teacher was cutting another student's hair. Everyone immediately attacked the teacher online. When confronted, the teacher explained that she had only been helping the student, not threatening her. Nobody believed her, except a colleague. That colleague promised to resolve the issue with Yoon. He called Yoon into his office and told her he had seen her editing the video. He knew she had intentionally made the teacher look bad. Yoon denied everything. He advised her to delete the video and become a better person. He was especially confused because her academic records showed she had always been an excellent student with no history of conflicts with teachers. So what had suddenly changed? Yoon merely gave him a cold smile, left. She immediately disheveled her clothes and appearance, recorded a video, and falsely accused him of assaulting her. The entire country exploded. Even his wife called to ask if it was true. Internet users investigated him, discovered all of his personal information, and even found the schools attended by his young children. Influencers constantly appeared outside his home to film and expose him. The man couldn't endure it. Eventually, he died. Did people show mercy afterward? Not at all. Some even attended his funeral to film content, insisting that his death didn't erase what he had supposedly done. The teacher named John became extremely upset and confronted Yoon. She begged her to tell the truth because it was impossible that the teacher had harmed her. Yoon burst into tears. "Why would I lie?" Then it turned out she was live streaming. She told her followers, "Fine, everyone. I'll upload a clarification because the teacher is forcing me." The public immediately turned against John as well. To calm the situation, the principal invited Yoon into his office and asked what she wanted. She replied that John should become the homeroom teacher for their class instead of the previous teacher, Ko. When John arrived, the students immediately became suspicious. She must be here to get revenge for what happened to Yoon. In their eyes, Yoon was now the victim. All of it was the result of her own manipulation. After finishing the report, Ban asked what role he would play in the mission. The others jokingly suggested he disguise himself as a female student, just imagining it was horrifying. After everyone finished laughing, the inspector reassured them a woman from their team would go instead. We soon meet her. Her name is Han. She is clumsy and almost trips while walking. But she enters the classroom with John and introduces herself. Nobody pays attention. Yoon is live streaming as usual. The moment she notices Han, she decides to target her. She tells a friend to ask Han where she got her plastic surgery. Maybe she can even show everyone a photo from before. The insult is obvious. Han calmly replies, "Sure, sweetheart, I had breast reduction surgery. But you girls obviously don't need that." The entire class is stunned. Then Han tells Yoon to end the live stream. Yoon challenges her, "Why don't you tell them yourself?" Instead of answering with words, Han kicks the phone out of her hand and smashes it onto the floor. Her voice completely changes. "All right, you little brats, hand over your phones." She uses a device to locate all the phones they have hidden. Then she introduces herself as a member of the protection office. She orders surveillance cameras installed throughout the hallways and explains the rules. The most important rule, no one disobeys her orders. At the same time, the inspector introduces himself to the teachers. He tells them that anyone who has suffered harm from students should report it. The principal immediately claims that their students are angels. The inspector obviously doesn't believe him. Han begins putting the girls through harsh exercises. Later, she meets with the inspector and Ban. They reveal that she also served in the military alongside the inspector. Ban is impressed. Then he realizes she might be slightly insane. Even the inspector tells her that everything is permitted with the students except killing them. That statement doesn't exactly inspire confidence. Later, Han tells Ban that the most dangerous place in the school is the cafeteria. He discovers she is right during break time. The girls rush in, grab whatever they want through intimidation, and leave without paying. At the end of the day, Han catches Yoon and the others trying to leave without cleaning up after themselves. When she stops them, Yoon casually says that Teacher John will clean it for them. Han immediately grabs her and forces her to clean. "If you use a place, you clean it. Why should we clean up after you?" After finishing her work, Han goes to the office. The inspector asks her to investigate the girls' social media accounts and search for posts defaming teachers. Han promptly falls asleep and leaves the task to Ban. The next day, Ban prints everything he found. Han brings the evidence to the students and politely explains that if they repeat any of it, they will face defamation lawsuits. The girls begin discussing everything that is happening. Once again, they bring up Ko and Yeon. They admit that they had always believed Ko was innocent. Just then, Yeon appears behind them. The conversation immediately dies. Meanwhile, Jeon reviews the videos and photos that had been posted about her. The students had leaked almost everything about her, including her home address. The harassment affects her deeply. She even applies for a job at a private academy to escape the misery of school life. Unfortunately, the director tells her that her reputation has already reached them. She realizes that Yoon has successfully ruined her life too. Strangely, after that, Yeon begins treating her kindly. The entire class suddenly becomes attentive and respectful. Han warns John not to fall for it. "They're playing with your emotions." Her suspicion is confirmed when Yoon approaches John and suggests appearing together on a live stream. The goal is to show everyone that their relationship is now good. In exchange, John only needs to criticize the inspection committee. Yoon claims the rest of the students dislike them as well. Jeon finally starts understanding their real objective. She becomes conflicted. Then the inspector visits her and tells her about his fiancé. He explains how she died because of one of her students. We learn that she remained on life support until he returned from military service and died in his arms. Then he reveals a shocking truth. They never came to this school because of what happened to Ko. They came because several students had secretly sent reports asking for help. When Jeon reads those messages, she is deeply moved. The next day, she firmly tells Yoon that she will not participate in the live stream. Not only that, but she forces Yoon to answer a question in front of the class. When Yoon refuses, Jeon strikes her hand with a ruler. She then tells the class that she is sorry for having been weak. From now on, she will try to guide them properly. The incident badly wounds Yoon's pride. She cannot let it go. Just as she is about to upload another post, she discovers that her entire account is being wiped clean. Every post disappears. Then the full harassment video is uploaded. This time, there is no editing. The foolish girl had accidentally recorded herself acting. Ko's innocence is finally proven. Everyone starts talking about how disgusting Yoon was, and how she destroyed an innocent man for fame. Despite everything, John still worries about her. She even contacts Han to check on her. Then John's doorbell rings. It is Yoon. The moment she enters, she tells John, "You're the reason Ko died. You're a hypocrite just like every other teacher. If people want me dead, fine. I'll die, but I'm taking you with me." She attacks John. At that moment, Yoon herself nearly falls from the balcony. John instinctively rushes to save her. As a result, John falls instead. But at the last second, someone leaps forward like Superman and catches her, taking the impact of the fall in her place. As for Yoon, when she looks up, she finds Han standing right in front of her, the very person she never wanted to face, and controlled herself. Han looked Yoon in the eyes and told her that she had to keep living. She had to live with what she had done and with the fact that she had hurt so many people. When she looks up, she finds Han standing right in front of her, the very person she never wanted to face, and controlled herself. Han looked Yoon in the eyes and told her that she had to keep living. She had to live with what she had done and with the fact that she had hurt so many people. Afterward, Han went downstairs to check on their hero, who had thrown himself into danger to save John. Like a monkey, he was still moving around normally. His head had only suffered a minor injury and a little bleeding. John was amazed. Not long afterward, the minister held another press conference and proudly announced the office's achievements. This time, however, the opposing politician decided to strike back. He held a press conference of his own and publicly revealed that the minister was the father of the teacher who had been murdered by her student 2 years earlier. He also revealed that Choi had been engaged to her and that they had been preparing for their wedding. According to him, the entire office had been created for a personal reason: revenge. Revenge against students, who were, in the end, still children. The news spread everywhere. Han saw the reports and asked Choi if they were true. He calmly answered yes. Han tried to ignore it and focus on work. At that moment, a new case arrived. A student had assaulted a teacher, and not just any teacher. This man was elderly, beloved by everyone, and highly respected. When they arrived at the school, Han saw Choi running over excitedly to greet him. Ban explained that the teacher loved his students and was excellent at his job. Ever since joining the school, he had raised its ranking among other international schools. Han was confused. If he was such a wonderful teacher, why had the student attacked him? She questioned the student. Hyun. He sat there silently, showing almost no emotion, frustrated. Han went to Ban. This kid must be some arrogant failure. Ban shook his head. He's not a failure. He's actually the top student in the entire school. Han was stunned. She returned to Hyun. You're getting grades like these. How could you throw away your future by attacking a teacher? And not just any teacher. Teacher Cheol? Meanwhile, Choi sat with Cheol, talking as usual. He asked why Hyun had attacked him. Cheol explained that Hyun attended a special study group he had created. However, Hyun often skipped classes and seemed dissatisfied with the lessons. Cheol eventually visited his parents to discuss the issue, but they were busy running their restaurant, so he chose not to burden them further. After that, Hyun suddenly attacked him. On the other side, Hyun finally told Han his version of the story. Cheol had visited his family for no apparent reason. Shortly afterward, the tuition for Hyun's academy classes stopped being paid. Then, he discovered that his parents were facing financial difficulties because someone had reported their restaurant for building violations. As a result, he had to start taking private lessons. Cheol noticed that too, and asked for the name of the private tutor. Soon afterward, the tutor suddenly informed Hyun that he could no longer teach him because he wanted to focus on his own future and university plans. From Hyun's perspective, none of those events were coincidences. He was convinced that Cheol was responsible. Han found the story believable. Furious, she confronted Choi. She found him happily watching videos of Cheol and praising him. That's enough, she snapped. Maybe those people are right about you. Maybe this office really is just about getting revenge on students. Choi simply looked at her. If that's what you think, fine. Then he walked away. Meanwhile, Ban reviewed the rankings of the school's top students. As expected, Hyun ranked first, but he noticed something strange. The next 10 students all attended the same academy. He visited the academy disguised as a student. The staff refused to let him in and nearly realized he wasn't actually a student. Luckily, Joe appeared and greeted him, which helped him avoid suspicion. The two went to eat together. Some of their old classmates joined them. Seeing how much their lives had improved, Ban felt proud of the work they were doing. Later, while writing his report, he noticed Han running across the field, furious. As she ran, she remembered her own past. She had once been bullied at school, too. The only person who had helped her was Choi. He had told her, "Just ask for help, and I'll help you." She had begged him for assistance. From that day forward, her entire life changed. That was why she was so angry. The man who had saved her couldn't possibly be the villain she was imagining. The next day, she realized she had been wrong. She confronted Cheol directly. Let's be honest. You want Hyun punished, so he can't take the upcoming exam. If Hyun missed the exam, his ranking would drop. That meant student number 11, Soo, would move into the top 10. Every student from second place onward would rise by 1 rank. And by pure coincidence, all of those students attended the same academy. The academy connected to Cheol. Han continued. Yoon, a student from your old school, also told me she was supposed to receive a scholarship and attend this school. But you ruined her family's business and her studies, so she couldn't keep up. That's how Soo ended up taking her place. Cheol dismissed everything as nonsense. Then, he arranged a meeting with Soo's mother. She turned out to be an extremely wealthy woman. She had forced her daughter into the school and hated the fact that Soo ranked 11th instead of among the top 10. Cheol promised her that even if Hyun took the exam, her daughter would still surpass him, as long as she focused and memorized the answers correctly. In return, the woman promised to support him heavily. Back at school, Han was still upset. Ban explained that she had misjudged Cheol. From the moment Hyun had been arrested, Cheol had questioned her and learned what had made her hate teachers so much. That was why they had come to this school in the first place. Their true goal was to save Hyun from Cheol. Han was shocked. Why didn't he tell me? Now she felt even worse for doubting him. Unfortunately, before they could celebrate, disaster struck. The team was suddenly arrested because of their investigation methods in previous cases and because of their accusations against the perfect teacher, Cheol. Even the minister was arrested.
수사 중인 것으로 밝혀졌습니다. 쌍열 교사에 대한 교권국의 조사.
Choi immediately concluded that this had to be a plan, orchestrated by Cheol and the parents supporting him. Their goal was obvious: keep them locked up until after the exam so they couldn't help Hyun. The minister turned to Ban. Didn't you ask me to transfer you out of the team? Ban awkwardly smiled. I changed my mind, sir. I ended up liking all of you. The minister sighed. Just listen to me. Then he signed Ban's transfer papers. As a result, Ban became the only member of the team who was still free. The exams began the next day. Cheol reviewed Soo's answer sheet. He was shocked. The girl who had supposedly memorized every answer got nearly everything wrong. How was that possible? Then he realized something. The exam had been altered. He rushed to stop the next test. Just then, Choi appeared after finally being released from jail. Well, teacher, you don't actually have the authority to stop an exam. He chased Cheol away. Cheol tried once again to interfere. Choi smiled. Let's hear it together. Then he played the recorded conversation between Cheol and Soo's mother for the entire school. Not only that, Choi revealed the truth. The exam itself hadn't been changed, only the order of the questions had been rearranged. Soo, who was supposed to be ranked 11th, didn't truly understand the material. She simply answered, according to the leaked version she had memorized. It was like the famous exam leak scandals where students memorize answers without understanding the questions. That simple change exposed everything. Hyol had been leaking exam papers, and the person who secretly rearranged the questions was Ban. Through that clever move, they finally caught him. At the same time, the minister appeared before a public hearing that was being broadcast live. People questioned whether the office had really been created for personal revenge. The minister answered directly. Revenge? If that's what improves the education system, then fine. Then he publicly exposed Cheol and all the parents who had bribed him. One of those parents even belonged to the same political party as the politician attacking him. The entire group was humiliated. The minister then made one thing clear. Their office didn't only investigate students. It also held teachers accountable. Teachers were supposed to guide students, not exploit them. As a result of their success and their exposure of Cheol's crimes, public opinion shifted in their favor. Hyun personally came to thank them. He was deeply emotional. They encouraged him to stay focused on his future. When Cheol was finally arrested, Choi brought him to Hyun. He told him that, because of his actions, Hyun had ended up in prison. Then, a very unusual case arrived. This time, it involved an elementary school. On their very first day there, a teacher tried to take her own life after sending her mother a message, asking her never to forgive a certain person and to read her diary. Hyun stopped her just in time. She pretended not to realize what the teacher had been trying to do, sparing her the embarrassment. Afterward, Hyun conducted psychological evaluations on her and the rest of the teachers. Based on the results, she told the teacher that she needed time off. She also revealed that the teacher's own mother had contacted the office and asked for help. The teacher worried about whoever would replace her class. He'll be destroyed, Hyun reassured her. The new teacher is very strong. That new teacher turned out to be Choi. For once, he abandoned his usual black clothes because he was now dealing with small children, and the children completely exhausted him. "Teacher, make me a frog. Teacher, I need the bathroom." All day long he ran back and forth helping them. When he returned home that evening, he talked to himself, looked at a picture of his fiancée, and asked, "Was your job really this hard?" The truth was that the previous teacher, Sun, wasn't struggling because of the children. She actually loved teaching. On her first day, she warmly welcomed her students and encouraged them to introduce themselves. One boy seemed shy, so she kindly helped him. Then, she received a message from his mother, asking her to be careful with how she spoke to him because his feelings might get hurt. Sun understood, but the mother didn't stop there. She started sending constant complaints about everything. Eventually, she became obsessed. She tried controlling Sun's clothes, her life, and even her social media. At one point, the woman publicly criticized a photo Sun posted with her friends, complaining about drinks on the table and countless other ridiculous things. When Sun finally reached her limit, she reported the problem to the principal. The principal simply told her to remove Instagram and let the matter go, so she did. Unfortunately, the mother continued harassing her. She demanded Sun's phone number. When she didn't get it, she found it herself and started bombarding her with calls and messages. Sun tried focusing more on the boy. She even created a special room for him to make him happy. Then everything collapsed. One day, while playing, another child accidentally bumped into him. The boy reacted by punching the other child in the eye. Despite what happened, his mother insisted that her son shouldn't apologize because he was the victim. The other parent was initially willing to move on, but after hearing that attitude, she became furious. "My son's eye could have been permanently damaged." The mother replied casually, "Fine. Let's have a school violence hearing and see who was really at fault." When the hearing determined that her son was responsible, the woman went to Sun's house and threatened her. The harassment continued. Soon afterward, the boy's father appeared at school. He was huge. He shoved Sun aggressively. Her life became a nightmare. Eventually, Sun filed a complaint against the mother. The mother immediately filed one of her own, claiming Sun was psychologically abusing her son. Sun asked, "What will you do if I'm proven innocent?" The woman calmly replied, "I'll apologize. That's the law." For months, Sun remained under investigation. When she was finally cleared, nobody cared. The mother had spent months destroying her reputation. The stress became so severe that Sun developed serious psychological problems, and half of her face became paralyzed. When Choi learned all of this, he decided to deal with the mother personally. The first thing he did was ask her son to solve a simple problem in class. She immediately rushed over and scolded him for embarrassing her son in front of everyone. Even though the boy had solved it correctly, Choi calmly manipulated the conversation, speaking politely and gently, the complete opposite of how she had treated Sunday. To her, he became a complete disaster. He constantly called her, sometimes for important reasons, sometimes for no reason at all. One day, he called 4 times in a row just to ask how she usually woke her son up in the morning. Furious, she confronted him and tried threatening him with her husband. "Just so you know, my husband is very angry." Choi immediately escalated the situation. He went straight to her husband's workplace and pretended to be a helpless victim, repeatedly apologizing and begging for forgiveness. The public scene embarrassed the man so much that he nearly hit Choi. Instead, Choi hit him first. "What is this nonsense about your husband being angry? Every time your wife says that, are we supposed to care? Whether he's angry or exploding, what does that have to do with us?" The husband became furious with his wife. Burning with rage, she went to the principal to complain. This time, the principal answered her directly. "Is your son the only person with a family? My teachers have families too. People care about them too." The woman scoffed. "Oh, so now you all think you're important?" She decided to gather the other parents and turn them against the entire school. When she arrived at the meeting, she found Choi already there. He had already told everyone everything. Not only that, he had filed a complaint against her for how she treated her son, especially after dragging him home by force and humiliating him in front of the class. She angrily asked, "What will you do if I'm proven innocent?" Choi smiled. "I'll apologize. That's the law, isn't it?" Soon afterward, her reputation collapsed. People began saying that she was the same woman who had driven Sun into psychological ruin through her extreme behavior. Consumed by anger, she went looking for Sun. She saw Sun running from her home toward the school and chased after her. Suddenly, Choi appeared in front of her. For the first time, he introduced himself properly, and then he told her that she wouldn't get away with what she had done to Sun. The woman immediately shot back, saying that Sun wouldn't get away with what she had done to her son either. So Choi showed her the truth. Her son actually loved and respected Sun, unlike his mother. In fact, he had called Sun and asked her to come. That was why she had run all the way from her house to the school. When they met, the boy burst into tears and sincerely apologized to Sun for all the trouble his mother had caused her for no reason. Choi then looked at the woman and said, "If you want your son to grow up selfish, only caring about himself, never admitting his mistakes, and never apologizing when he's wrong, then keep raising him exactly the way you are now. Call it positive parenting if you want." Those words hit her hard. For the first time, she realized how wrong she had been. But even that wasn't enough. Later, we see her standing in court as the prosecutor lists all the crimes she committed against Sun: threats, stalking, harassment, and defamation. Yet because Sun was a teacher and the woman was a parent, the law had protected her far more than it would have protected an ordinary victim in the same situation. Only then did she truly begin to understand the severity of her actions. As usual, the minister held another press conference. This time, he announced that the ministry would begin discussing stronger protections for teachers against abuse of authority by parents. He publicly apologized to every teacher who had suffered because of such treatment. Many people were deeply moved, especially after learning the story of his daughter. Meanwhile, Choi sat alone at home holding his fiancée's diary. As he flipped through the pages, he found an entry she had written shortly after transferring to a new school. She had written that her entire attention had become focused on one particular student named Cho. Tragically, that student was the very same person who later killed her. As we already know, Choi still hadn't moved on. We see him reviewing her case file again. Through the documents, we learn that she had gone to meet Cho at school. There, he stabbed her with a pair of scissors, leading to her death, trying to pull him away from those painful memories.
선생님은
The minister himself comes to eat with him. When he notices Choi reviewing the file again, he warns him, if this job ever becomes personal, it stops being justice and becomes revenge. And that's not right. Choi promises to control himself better. Later, he joins the rest of the team. They are driving somewhere when they suddenly witness a group of teenagers stealing a car. Inside the vehicle is a girl whose hands are tied. The team immediately tries to stop them. The teenagers panic and speed away. A high-speed chase begins. The kids drive recklessly, causing one disaster after another. Finally, Han manages to stop them by throwing a wheel under their vehicle, forcing it to come to a halt. When Choi approaches them, the teenagers smirk. "We're juvenile offenders." What? "We're 14 years old." They say it proudly, as if it makes them untouchable. When the police arrive and their teacher comes to pick them up, the team learns something shocking. Reports had already been filed against these kids before. The teenagers knew the law extremely well and constantly exploited it. The minister arrives to release them before he can even mock the team for getting outsmarted by a bunch of kids. They notice the same teenagers outside vandalizing his car. The kids run away laughing. The minister immediately says, "All right, gentlemen, let's visit their school." And so they do. The investigation begins. The first thing Choi does is order the boys to write apology letters for what happened the previous day. Meanwhile, Han questions their classmates, trying to learn more about them. Everyone is terrified. Nobody wants to talk. Han and Ban then focus on the girl who had been kidnapped in the stolen car. Maybe she knows something. When they check school records, they discover that she was marked present but is nowhere to be found. That means she definitely came to school. Someone must have hidden her somewhere. Ban searches through the students' social media accounts and eventually finds photos showing them standing near a locked storage locker. The team rushes there. Sadly, their suspicions are correct. The girl is trapped inside. They immediately take her to the clinic. There, she finally tells them everything. Her life had been perfectly normal until she decided she wanted to lose a little weight. One of the boys recommended some pills. He told her that even famous idols use them. After trying them, she liked the effects and kept going back for more. The boy gradually raised the price. Eventually, she ran out of money. By then, she had become dependent on the drug. The boy offered her a solution. She could work for him. In exchange, he would continue supplying the pills. Soon, he had her selling them to others as well. Whenever she tried to quit, he and his friends beat her. Eventually, they locked her inside that storage cabinet. Desperate, she reported them to the police. The police arrested them. The next day, they were released. The boys immediately returned to torment her. And they reminded her, "We're 14 years old, the law can't do anything to us." They had only received a warning, nothing more. That was why they were so confident. Later, when Choi demands apologies, the boys refuse. Han explains that these aren't ordinary troublemakers, they're drug dealers. The boys simply laugh. "The law will forgive us. We'll stop when we're older. Or arrest us if you can." Choi smiles, gladly. After school, he grabs them and throws them into a vehicle. Then, he takes them directly to prison. The boys can't believe it. But the minister has already made arrangements with the prison director. The teenagers are allowed inside. They are humiliated from the moment they enter. The boys immediately start begging to leave. Han calmly tells them, "If you can beat me, I'll let you go." The boys think numbers will overwhelm her. They are wrong. Han destroys all of them in seconds. After that, Ban becomes responsible for teaching them. If they don't pay attention in class, Han is always ready to encourage them. Even then, they continue acting arrogant. One day in the cafeteria, Choi approaches them. "Why don't you use that we're minors excuse now?" Then, he sends them to the back of the line. The regular inmates eat first. Not only that, they take all the best food. The prisoners begin treating the boys like entertainment. Later, the teenagers are assigned dishwashing duty. They become miserable. Then, another inmate comes over, carrying plates. One of the boys suddenly punches him. When Choi arrives to punish him, the inmate unexpectedly defends the boy. Choi is surprised by his kindness. Later, he tells them about the inmate's past. The man had once been a student who suffered horrific bullying. Eventually, he snapped and killed the entire group responsible. The teenagers immediately recognize the story. He is the infamous bully killer they had seen in the news. From that moment on, they are terrified of him. One day, one of them sees the inmate secretly hiding a spoon. Instantly, he becomes convinced the man plans to murder him with it. When prison staff later discover that a spoon is missing, the inmate openly admits he has it. They search him but find nothing. Suddenly, the spoon appears. The terrified teenager panics and runs. The others quickly restrain him. The poor boy ends up crying hysterically. Meanwhile, outside prison, the parents of the juvenile offenders organize protests against the protection office. The minister addresses them directly. "Yes, this treatment must seem harsh. After all, your children are angels, aren't they?" Then, he invites them to visit the school the next day. When the parents arrive, they are overjoyed to finally see their children again. Immediately, they begin attacking the minister. "Our children are too young for this." The minister calmly responds, "Too young for what?" Then he reveals the pills their children have been distributing. The parents immediately claim they are just diet supplements. Without hesitation, Choi forces one of the parents to swallow a pill. The parent immediately spits it out. Suddenly, they don't seem so harmless anymore. The minister then reveals another bag containing the real drugs. The packaging is nearly identical. He explains that their children have been distributing illegal substances and fully understand the damage those drugs can cause. If your children deserve protection because they're minors, what about the children they harmed? Those victims are minors too. They have parents who love them as well. The parents begin begging for forgiveness. The team tells them not to beg them. They should beg the girl whose life was destroyed. The girl arrives. Thankfully, she refuses. "I will never forgive them." The boys are outraged. Their leader immediately rushes toward her and tries to attack her. "I don't care. I'm a minor. Nobody can punish me." Han instantly knocks him down. At that point, the minister orders all of them back to prison. Clearly, they haven't changed at all. Their parents break down crying. When the boys return, the first face they see is the bully killer. They're terrified, especially their leader. For the first time, he remembers something his victim once told him, that he had turned her school life into a living nightmare. Now, he finally understands exactly what that felt like. The bully killer, however, has changed. He helps Choi and never actually harms the boys. He only scares them. Choi thanks him. The man smiles and replies that Choi is the one who deserves thanks. Because of his work, there will hopefully be fewer people who end up like him. Later, one of the juvenile offenders is approached in prison by another inmate. The man casually asks if he knows the leader of the drug organization responsible for the pills. The boy says he knows who it is but hasn't told anyone. The inmate smiles. "Good, our boss doesn't like people knowing too much." Then, he suddenly pulls out a knife and attacks. Choi rushes to save the boy. Before he can reach him, another inmate jumps in and takes the stab wound in his arm. That inmate turns out to be Choi, the same Choi who murdered Choi's fiancée 2 years earlier. Seeing him again shakes Choi deeply. Even so, he remains nearby until Choi receives treatment. Afterward, Choi approaches him, drops to his knees, and apologizes. He says that Gaeon had been the only person who was ever kind to him, the only person he ever truly loved. Choi can't bear listening. He turns around and walks away. Not long afterward, we discover that Choi was acting the entire time, and just when it seemed like we might actually feel sorry for him. Soon afterward, the minister speaks with Choi. He tells him that feeling upset after seeing Choi again is completely natural. But he reminds him of something important. He's no longer Gaeon's fiancé. He's now an inspector for the protection office. Later, the team returns to headquarters. There they find an exhausted man carrying stacks of documents. He desperately begs them to save him and save his son. The man explains that he suddenly began receiving calls from people claiming his son owed them money. At first, he and his wife assumed the amount was small. Then they discovered the debt had reached 85 million won. They were horrified. They sold everything they owned to repay it. They begged their son to stop gambling. They believed it all stemmed from a game. Afterward, they even replaced his smartphone with a simple button phone. But someone gave him another touchscreen phone. The boy returned to gambling immediately. Soon afterward, debt collectors appeared at the father's workplace and beat him in front of all his co-workers. Desperate, he begged his manager to accept his resignation and at least pay him his retirement compensation. Even after that, the debts continued growing. His son never stopped gambling. Then one day, the boy disappeared. He left behind a message saying he couldn't face his parents anymore. The father spent months gathering evidence. The police never helped him. The protection office was his last hope. The team is deeply moved by his story. Without hesitation, they begin the investigation. Bon infiltrates the boy's school, disguised as a new student. Through the camera hidden in his glasses, he records everything. He quickly discovers that many students are playing the same online game. One of them suddenly wins 1 million won and decides to treat his friends. Bon joins them. The student starts playing in front of him and keeps winning. When Bon asks whether it's gambling, the student immediately denies it. Gambling? No way. We're just playing a game. Bon later reports that this is exactly how the system attracts new players. The game lures them in with easy victories. Soon, Bon downloads the game himself. He even receives 50,000 won as a registration bonus. When Choi hears this, he comments that gambling is especially dangerous for someone as confident in mathematics as Bon. Perfect. Then play and show us. Bon starts playing. At first he wins. Naturally, greed takes over. He raises the stakes. Then, he starts losing. He spends the entire night playing. By the next morning, he's practically addicted. The students immediately recognize what happened. They tell him that if he's short on money, he can borrow some. All they need is his mother's phone number as collateral. Bon accepts. They lend him 1 million won, but they only hand him 800,000. Then they explain that the loan carries a 10% daily interest rate. After calculating the numbers, Bon nearly cries. At that rate, he'll be bankrupt in no time. The students simply shrug. So what? Eventually, they call Han, using the number Bon provided, pretending she is his mother. Han deliberately ignores them. The students conclude that Bon's family doesn't care about him. As a result, they decide to expel him from their circle. Choi orders Han to keep a close eye on him. She does. Unfortunately, she gets hungry. The moment she leaves to buy food, Bon disappears. A black vehicle arrives and kidnaps him. Several other teenagers are inside. Everyone is forced to hand over their phones. Fortunately, Bon manages to secretly drop his own phone out the window before anyone notices. He soon discovers that the gang forces teenagers to commit crimes such as theft. They want him to participate too. Bon refuses. He even stops others from stealing. For that, he is taken to the gang's headquarters for punishment. Meanwhile, the rest of the team desperately searches for him. Han feels incredibly guilty. Choi reassures her, "We'll find him." Inside the hideout, Bon is assigned to the messaging team. Their job is to send promotional text to random numbers, inviting people to join the gambling game. He wants to use the computer to contact his team. Another boy secretly warns him that everything is being monitored. The gang members catch him anyway and beat him. Things get even worse later. When Bon accidentally wets himself while sleeping, they prepare to beat him again. Thankfully, he manages to stop them. He claims he can repair the broken server that has been causing problems for the organization. The gang becomes interested. Instead of punishing him, they put him to work. Soon, they take him directly to the gang leader. The man holds a knife to Ban and gives him a simple warning. "If you fail, I'll take one of your eyes." So Ban has no choice. He sits down and begins trying to solve. When the plan succeeded, they treated him very well. Meanwhile, his team couldn't find any leads because the car had been stolen and vanished without a trace. So they brought in Han, the kid who used to lure children into the game. They asked him about the game's logo. When he pointed it out, they discovered that Ban had been incredibly clever and had secretly sent them a message through it, revealing his location. They rushed to the place, only to find it empty. At that moment, Choi guessed that Ban might have spotted that location from where he was being held. They headed to the building facing it, and sure enough, that was the right place. Han was furious. She stormed into the gang's hideout, demanding to know where he was. "Look, he's this kid who seems kind of foolish and careless, but he has small eyes and he's handsome." Choi completely ignored the fighting going on around him and asked, "Who's this handsome guy you're talking about?" Han ignored him and immediately started questioning everyone she could find.
야, 너무 긍정적이라 하지 마.
At last, the missing children appeared, including the handsome boy. Han rushed over to make sure he was safe. Choi told her, "I'll leave you to your reunion. I'm going after the boss." Ban had already revealed the leader's location. When Choi arrived, he found only the gang members. After beating information out of them, he learned their boss had escaped and immediately chased him down. He caught him and broke his arm. The man dropped to his knees, begging for mercy. Choi said, "Let's play rock, paper, scissors." Just like Squid Game, Choi won every round effortlessly since the man's broken fingers could barely move. Then Choi said, "This is what you did to those children. You took away their families, their education, and their lives." And he hit him again. Meanwhile, Han and Ban rescued Jae, the boy who had warned them they were being watched. They discovered he was actually the son of the man who had first asked them for help. Later, the father thanked them and admitted to the minister that he was terrified his son might fall back into trouble. The minister replied, "We'll help you take responsibility for him." At the same time, Choi told his son that his best friend had secretly worked with the gang and deliberately dragged him into the game. The friend had even given him another phone after his parents confiscated the first one. His son was devastated. The boy tried to defend himself, claiming the gang had threatened him too. When Choi said they would all be held accountable, the children started crying. "We're just kids. The adults who used us should be punished. We're victims too." Choi replied, "The real victims are your parents. They worked themselves to exhaustion, sacrificed everything, and endured humiliation for your sake. Yet you had countless chances to stop and never did because you loved easy money." His words finally reached them. As punishment, Choi forced them to work part-time jobs and use their wages to repay their own debts instead of burdening their parents. He also confiscated their phones. Han wanted to do the same to Ban, after realizing he was still obsessed with conspiracy theories. She even called Choi to report him. Meanwhile, the minister met with a rival politician. The politician smirked. "I heard you're using what happened to your daughter to gain support for the presidential election." The minister smiled. "Interesting how quickly you hear everyone else's news. Yet you somehow don't know. Your own party is holding a meeting today without you." The politician was furious. Soon, an opportunity appeared. A police officer handed him a flash drive containing information that could damage the protection office. Not long afterward, he visited Choi in prison. It was obvious he had no intention of letting the matter end quietly. Meanwhile, the team was conducting large-scale school screenings. Officially, they claimed the program was for disease detection. Everyone knew the real purpose. They were searching for illegal substances among students. Their next stop was Sonyeon School, famous for sending many students to Seoul National University. Upon arrival, they found a classroom occupied by only a handful of students. Ban explained, "These are the school's top students. They all want to become doctors." They noticed one boy looking unwell. When they checked on him, they found him bleeding and rushed him to the infirmary. What shocked Choi was the reaction of the other students. No one seemed concerned. Their attention never left the exam. Even the boy's mother arrived and immediately told him to continue. When he said he was too sick, she replied, "That's fine. Everyone else is tired too." Then she handed him unidentified pills. He swallowed them, endured the pain, and finished the test. Later, students were told they needed to undergo screening. The moment the mothers heard, they rushed to the school and tried to stop the process because their children had private lessons scheduled. They confronted Choi and threatened him. Choi calmly replied that the office had full authority. "If you're worried about lost study time, they can take the test tomorrow morning before school." The mothers insisted their children would never touch drugs. Choi answered, "We're trying to protect your children. We don't want any of them suddenly dying." That response immediately unsettled them. Meanwhile, in prison, the politician questioned Choi about his injuries. News stations quickly picked up the story. The media blamed Choi and the protection office, arguing that imprisoning minors had led to everything that followed. Han and Ban tried to contain the fallout. Choi didn't care. The next day, the parents brought their children for testing. Soon afterward, exam results were released. Min's mother was horrified by his grades. When he explained that he had been sick and had even fainted, she dismissed the excuse and reminded him of all her sacrifices. It was revealed that they originally lived outside Seoul. For years, she had dreamed of turning her son into a doctor. Although he was naturally intelligent, she was shocked by the level of competition after moving to Seoul. She sold their large home, moved into a tiny apartment near the school, and even removed his bedroom door so she could monitor him constantly. Her husband thought it was absurd. She replied, "Your brother became a doctor, and everyone respects him. My son will do the same." Their son studied endlessly to satisfy her, yet she always demanded more. She investigated where top students studied and eventually identified the most influential parent among them. She bought expensive gifts and humiliated herself trying to gain access to elite teachers. When that failed, she begged for advice. The wealthy woman finally gave her pills. They improved concentration. Afterward, Min's grades improved dramatically and he was accepted into the elite class. But the screening exposed everything. Choi informed the parents that the substance was illegal and ordered them to stop immediately. Then a doctor delivered alarming news. Min's results were the most dangerous. His mother had searched online for stronger concentration enhancers until she eventually found a drug dealer. Without realizing it, she had trapped her own son. As long as his grades rose, she ignored the damage. By then, Min was completely dependent on the drugs. He begged for more. Just as his mother was about to give them to him, Choi arrived, terrified. She refused to open the door, so Han climbed in through the balcony. The team stopped Min from taking more pills and rushed him to the hospital. Choi then confronted his mother. The tragedy was that she had known from the beginning. She had seen how badly the drugs were affecting her son, but ignored it because his grades kept improving. When she demanded to see him, saying he needed to keep studying for medical school, Choi replied, "If you love medical school so much, get in yourself." He brought all the schedules and textbooks she had forced on her son. "When you earn the grades required for medical school, I'll let you see him." She thought he was joking. He wasn't. He made her live exactly as her son had. She received the same tiny meals. She was barely allowed to sleep. Whenever she closed her eyes, Choi woke her up. He even removed her mattress. When she demanded an explanation, he replied, "You removed your son's door so you could watch him all the time. Comfort shouldn't matter to you either." Meanwhile, Min initially suffered severe withdrawal symptoms, but eventually he realized something. Deep down, his mother's pressure had made him want to die. The pills temporarily erased those feelings. That was why he became addicted. If he had taken them to escape death, then he would quit them in order to live. Gradually, he recovered. One day, his mother finally broke down and tried to escape. When Choi stopped her, she cried, "I sacrificed my entire life for my son." Choi replied, "No, your son sacrificed everything for you." Flashbacks showed how she had spent years convincing him to become a doctor for her sake. Even when it hurt him, he obeyed. Because he wanted to make her happy, she finally broke down in tears. Later, Min asked Ban, "How do I figure out what I want to do with my life?" Ban answered, "Learn about different fields and choose the one you genuinely enjoy." He introduced everyone to children's books. Min loved them. Even Han, who had mocked the idea, ended up crying while reading. Eventually, Choi forgave Min's mother. When she finally saw her son again, she first checked his health. Then she looked at the notebook, expecting to see study notes. It was completely blank. Her son calmly informed her that he no longer wanted to become a doctor. He wouldn't even take this year's exams because he wasn't mentally prepared. She begged him to reconsider, but he stood firm. "I'm going to live my life my way. Now it's time for you to live yours." Later, the minister announced that anyone caught using concentration drugs or other illegal substances would be banned from taking exams. While reviewing seized evidence, Choi noticed pills collected 2 years earlier. They looked exactly like drawings in his fiancée's journal. Beside them was a note, "Will I ever be able to forgive Cho?" Choi suddenly realized there was a direct connection between this case and the drug trade. The situation became even more shocking when the corrupt politician began helping Cho secure an early release from prison with a record of good conduct. Against all expectations, Cho returned to school. Parents were outraged. How could someone like him study alongside their children? Han was furious. Everyone was under pressure. Choi, however, visited Cho and simply said, "Be an ordinary student this time." Cho introduced himself to his classmates. Many mocked him for causing his teacher's death. He ignored them. Later, he noticed several students constantly surrounding a boy named San. Something felt wrong. Soon afterward, Cho visited the team. Han exploded when he mentioned Jaehyun's name, and they had to remove her before she started a fight. Cho explained that San was being bullied by Chi and his group. When Choi questioned the homeroom teacher, she claimed she had noticed nothing unusual. Choi then abruptly pulled San away from his friends. At that exact moment, everyone's internet connection disappeared. Looking at San, Choi said, "So you're their Wi-Fi?" San denied it. Choi continued, "You always sit in the middle. They gather around you. You're the first to pull out your phone, and you carry a massive power bank." Moments later, the other students rushed over after losing their connection and panicked when they saw San standing beside Choi. Especially after learning a bullying investigation was underway. San immediately defended them and led them away. Choi assigned Ban to watch them. But Ban was spotted by an old university classmate. Han took over, pretending to be timid. She approached Chi exactly as planned. As expected, he immediately insulted her and walked away. The team recorded his voice and used an imitation to contact San. Through the deception, They obtained his Netflix password. Investigating the account, they discovered something suspicious. At the same time, San's phone number had been used to order food, rent motorcycles, register online games, and conduct various transactions. The truth became clear. Chi's group had been exploiting San's accounts, personal information, and phone number. They even used his identity to sell items online, keep the money, and disappear. When angry buyers tracked down the seller, they found San. As a result, he was beaten for scams he never committed. Desperate, San begged Chi to return the money and help him. Chi simply replied, "Be patient." Or what? You don't trust me anymore? It became clear that San had not always been weak and submissive. Once, he had dignity. He had even tried to tell his mother what was happening. His mother confronted Chi's mother and accused Chi of exploiting San. Chi immediately denied it. Then, he showed them an inappropriate video that had been sent from San's phone number to his younger sister. San's mother ended up blaming her own son. Humiliated, she apologized and left. Afterward, Chi threatened San. "If you expose me again, I'll send that video to every girl in the class using your number." From then on, San obeyed him. Even his own mother no longer believed him. She simply paid his debts and ignored the problem. San sat alone, crying. Cho happened to see him and advised him to trust the protection office and file a complaint. The next day, they tried to report everything, but Chi had already acted first. He filed a complaint, accusing San of bullying him. A school violence hearing was scheduled. During the hearing, the truth was completely reversed. San was portrayed as the bully, while Chi became the victim. For the third time, San's mother refused to believe her son. She even apologized to Chi and his mother. San sat silently in tears. Cho approached him. "You don't have to cry quietly. It's okay to cry out loud." San replied that nobody believed him. "I do," Cho answered. Then, he promised to help. That was when their plan began. Han enrolled at the school as a transfer student. The moment Chi saw her, he recognized her as the clumsy girl who had bumped into him before. His first question was, "Do you have a Netflix account?" Han pulled out pages filled with account information, not only Netflix, but games, apps, and countless subscriptions. Everyone was amazed. They asked if she had been the Wi-Fi at her old school. "No," she replied. "They called me the hotspot." The boys burst out laughing. They were equally impressed by her massive power bank. When she asked to borrow their phones, they handed them over without hesitation. Ban immediately hacked them. From that moment, chaos began. Mysterious messages were sent from their phones. Items were purchased. Products were listed for sale. Everything descended into confusion. Eventually, Chi snapped. He confronted Han and accused her of being responsible. As he moved to hit her, Han punched him first.
One up.
When he grabbed a chair to attack her, she suddenly screamed, "Looks like it's time for another school violence committee." The hearing was held the next day. Han arrived looking battered and helpless. Chi laughed immediately. "She's acting." Nobody believed him. It was exactly what had happened to San. When Chi previously claimed psychological trauma, everyone had believed him and blamed San instead. Then Han revealed her true identity. The protection office announced that its investigation was complete. Chi was the bully, not San. "I never hit him," Chi protested. Choi replied, "You did something worse." If Chi had used physical violence, San could have shown bruises as proof. Instead, Chi left wounds nobody could see. San's mother finally apologized for never believing him. Afterward, she and San thanked the team. Everyone was celebrating until Choi appeared. "You told me not to cause trouble," he said to Choi. "But admit it." "I helped this time." Nobody acknowledged him. Later, Choi drank with his father-in-law. The old man became emotional while remembering his daughter. Choi stayed the night, hearing the old man cry. He remembered how she had brought them together. At first, they had been jealous of each other. Eventually, they became friends. Choi found himself crying too. Meanwhile, Chi confronted Choi at school. He blamed him for ruining his life. It was revealed that Choi had advised him to file the complaint against San first. According to Choi, filing first would make him look like the victim. Now, Chi was furious. Everything was destroyed because of that. Choi calmly replied, "Nothing was destroyed. I wanted all of this to happen." Chi stared at him. "What do you mean? My life is ruined. I feel like dying." Choi smiled. "Exactly." Then he shoved him off the rooftop. Later, Choi met the corrupt politician and handed him a recording of Chi, saying that the protection office had ruined his life and made him want to die. The politician was stunned. "Where did you get this?" Soon afterward, news reports announced that Chi had fallen from a building and was now in a coma after an apparent suicide attempt. The politician looked at Choi in disbelief. "What exactly did you do?" "Our goals are the same," Choi replied. "Don't forget that." Then, he made it clear that he had been manipulating the politician from the start. The politician was horrified. Looking back, he realized Choi had been controlling him since their first meeting. Now, he was trapped. To protect himself, he had no choice but to become even more corrupt. When the minister visited Chi in the hospital, the politician leaked the recording to the media. The scandal surrounding the protection office grew even worse. Meanwhile, Choi staged a protest outside the school demanding that the protection office be banned. When Choi arrived, Choi greeted him casually. "Oh, you came." Choi showed him one of the pills. "You make these?" "Yeah," Choi replied. "So what? You can't prove it." Then he added mockingly, "You and Choi were always obsessed with other people's problems." A painful truth was finally revealed. Choi had genuinely cared about him because he constantly skipped school. She waited outside his house, treated his injuries, and looked after him whenever he got hurt. She gave him every chance. None of it changed him. Eventually, he realized that selling drugs in schools was incredibly profitable. That was the real reason he returned to school. Choi had been happy to see him back. Then one day, she discovered the pills hidden in his bag. Choi laughed bitterly. She was too curious. If she hadn't been, maybe I would have married her. Choi could not endure hearing anymore. He punched him. Choi immediately begged for mercy. The fallout was severe. The team was suspended and banned from entering schools. Choi celebrated. His organization expanded rapidly and spread drugs everywhere. Students like San were used as delivery runners. They were told they were delivering sneakers. Many believed it. Soon, the operation had spread across 17 schools. Students became obsessed with earning money and spent more time making deliveries than attending classes. Teachers were devastated. Many wished the protection office would return. One day, San secretly contacted Choi. He had opened one of the boxes and discovered the truth. He wanted to report everything. Unfortunately, Choi caught him first and forced him to cancel the meeting. The operation continued. Then June noticed suspicious activity at her school. When she visited the team's headquarters, she discovered they were still working, despite lacking official approval. The reasons soon became clear. The Minister of Education had sent a message to teachers nationwide, asking them to cooperate with the protection office. The concentration drugs had spread to nearly every school. June asked whether anyone had come to help. At first, nobody had. Then teachers from many schools suddenly arrived. They brought evidence and admitted they were deeply worried about their students. The team reassured them they had already been monitoring Choi and gathering evidence with help from students they had previously saved. The teachers finally relaxed. The minister immediately held another press conference. He publicly revealed the investigation and named Choi as the primary suspect. Choi and his men quickly gathered their remaining stock and fled. When the team returned to the schools, the students welcomed them back. They had finally learned the truth about Choi. When investigators searched his hideout, they found it empty, except for a locked cabinet. Assuming something valuable was inside, they tried to open it. Then Choi realized it was a trap. He shouted a warning. The cabinet burst open and released a cloud of drugs. Han immediately shielded Ban and inhaled the substance herself. As Choi rushed to open the windows, he spotted Choi and his men escaping. Then he heard Han shouting behind him, "Did you know I can fly?" And she launched herself at Choi's men. One of them turned to attack her but fled the moment he saw Choi charging toward him. Han confidently claimed she could handle the remaining two. Unfortunately, the drugs had completely affected her judgment. She got beaten badly. For once, Ban stepped forward. Wearing his expensive gadgets like armor, he charged into the fight. Surprisingly, he actually won. Afterward, he carried Han away and tried to help her recover. Suddenly, she hugged him. Ban immediately panicked. Meanwhile, Choi tracked down Choi. Choi hid behind several terrified students. Choi pushed them aside and went straight for him. At that moment, Choi remembered what had happened 2 years earlier. Jaeyeon had confronted him after discovering the pills. She had not reported him. Instead, she gave him one final chance to surrender. Choi had cried and pretended to accept. When she stepped forward to hug him, he stabbed her. Then he calmly explained that he was a troubled minor. At worst, he would spend a few years in prison and return. The school drug business was too profitable to abandon. She, however, would die before ever getting married. The betrayal shattered her. Back in the present, Choi repeated Jaeyeon's words almost exactly. He was offering Choi the same final chance. Choi snapped. "No, that's too much." Before Choi could act, Choi's men threatened San. Choi seized the opportunity and stabbed Choi exactly as he had stabbed Jaeyeon. He even used San as leverage to prevent resistance. Han witnessed everything. Still affected by the drugs, she begged Ban to wake her up properly. He did. Han immediately rushed into the fight. Once Choi confirmed San was safe, he finally retaliated. He grabbed Choi and beat him mercilessly. Everyone expected him to take revenge. Instead, he stopped. He let Choi live. This is your last chance too. Choi collapsed in tears. Who do you and she think you are? Angels? Choi replied. No, we're just adults trying to protect you. For the first time, Choi felt genuine regret. He cried even harder. Meanwhile, Choi imagined Jaeyeon smiling at him. She was proud that he had restrained himself. The minister personally arrived to arrest Choi. He remained calm until he learned that Choi had stabbed Choi. Then he exploded. That's enough. Do you realize I'm his father-in-law? The officers barely managed to calm him down. Later, another press conference was held. Standing beside the team, the minister explained that the protection office had never existed to control students. Its purpose was to improve education, protect schools, and help reform those who had lost their way. Later, the team visited Jaeyeon's grave. It was covered with letters from students. As they walked away, Ban accidentally grabbed Han's hand. Both froze in embarrassment. The minister noticed. Before he could speak, Choi said, "They're crazy about each other. They just don't know it yet." Everyone laughed. Sometime later, the team faced a new case involving a talented basketball player who bullied his teammates. Ban arrived disguised as Choi and looked impressive for about 5 seconds. Then the basketball player stood up. Ban immediately lost all confidence. The athlete practically lifted him with one hand. Han rushed in and got shoved aside. Both ended up on the ground. Their classmates lost hope. Then Choi arrived. He solved the situation the way he always did, by walking over and smacking the player across the face. As for the corrupt politician, he was finally arrested. The minister visited him and revealed that he had known about Choi's recording but deliberately hid it. This was the consequence. The politician shouted, "What are you? Some kind of angel who never makes mistakes?" The minister replied, "No, brother, I make mistakes too." Then he punched him in the face. The story ended with justice served, the protection office restored, and Jaeyeon's sacrifice finally honored.